Hi everybody, welcome to The Oldish. My name is Karen Brown. I'm the publisher and editor of The Oldish, and as always, it is my pleasure to welcome you here today. Got my sleeves rolled up today. This topic makes fire shoot out my ears. Have you ever heard of hospital-associated disability? We've talked about how hospitals are not the greatest places for older adults to be on a few shows in the past. Now we have a study. This study was found by our writer for The Oldish, Heather, and she published on it last week. I want to share with you the contents of this because this is not rocket science, but the hospitals keep doing it, and I don't understand. Let me show you the article, first of all. This is it, Hospital-Associated Disability. Now it talks about a study that was done at Yale University, at their School of Medicine. So this is highly credible, highly credible. The study followed 515 people over the age of 70 who lived at home at the beginning of the study. Now, a really interesting thing about this study was that these people that were studied were already in another study. So they had a baseline on them. That means that they weren't just studying people who were in hospital and had come out of hospital. They had already been studying them before. So they knew what their challenges were, they knew what assistive devices they used, they knew how far they could walk, whether they had difficulties standing up from a sitting position. They had all of that data. So this is really a very focused study that for the first time shows us, beyond a question of a doubt, the functional level of people before they go into hospital, and then their functional level afterwards, and for a period of time afterwards. I'll show you the study. The actual study itself is over here. Many older adults, let me just move this out of the way a little bit, face new disabilities after hospital stays for serious illness. So here is the part where they looked at, these participants were examined at home at the start of the PEP study. So they were already involved in a participating events project, 754 people age 70 or older. They were not disabled, they did not need assistance, bathing, dressing, walking outside the home, or getting out of a chair. They were examined 1 month and 6 months after hospitalization, and you look down here, disability was common for the study participants and interfered with their ability to leave home for medical care. Disabilities included being unable to get dressed, walk across a room, get in or out of a chair, walk a quarter mile, climb a flight of stairs, and drive a car. You look further on down. Disability was also common for the kinds of activities people need to take care of themselves, including meal preparation and taking medications. Now, this happens, if you read on at the other studies that are noted in this article that was published at theoldish.com, you will see that there are 3 main points. Number 1, they don't sleep well. Number 2, they don't eat well. And number 3, they're not up ambulating or walking around. This is the part that makes my blood boil. These things are all fixable. These are all things that our hospitals can do better on. They are choosing not to. Now, if you talk to them, you talk to the hospitals, you talk to the doctors that are involved in this, they will say, well, you know, the budget. We don't have enough people to be in there getting people out of bed and walking them around. We're forced to slash budgets, and therefore we choose to use a food program. A lot of them will use a similar kind of program called retherm, which means the food is made off-site somewhere in a giant factory, and it is shipped to the hospital, and the hospital plates it and reheats it. Retherm, that's what it's called. Now, I've been at hospitals and I've eaten some of this retherm food. It's horrible. It's like eating 3 or 4 different things that all taste exactly the same, which is to say, bland. You can look on theoldish.com and you can find an article on a study that was done out in Vancouver, BC, I believe, Vancouver or Victoria, BC, where they studied the health benefits and the cost of feeding people food that is normal to them. There was no difference in cost, but there was a tremendous difference in the health of these people and in the way that they were able to recover. So don't tell me food. You can do it if you want to do it. If they can do it out there for the same budget, so can you. You're choosing not to. Now, as far as nursing staff, I get it. Nursing staff is expensive, but you have to weigh the benefits of the harm that you do to people. We're all familiar with the term do no harm, right? It's actually not part of the doctor's oath. If you look it up, it comes from Socrates or something long ago, and there are variations of it in the oaths that the doctors take to their medical college. But basically, doctors don't wish to do harm. Hospitals don't wish to do harm, and yet they are admitting people for a medical illness, let's say pneumonia, and releasing them with a host of other problems that cause functional decline. These people are not able to look after themselves when they go home the way that they were able to look after themselves before they went to the hospital. That's a horrendous disservice that we are doing to our older population. Now, in terms of sleep, that was the third piece that was mentioned. I don't want to let that slip by. You can't do much about the fact that this is not your own bed. It's a different bed. But the noise levels in the hospital, the fact that you may have a roommate who snores or snores differently from the roommate you're used to, the temperature isn't right. They come in and wake you up to do various tests or to check on you, and doors are opening and closing and lights are going on and going off, and you're being rolled over and disturbed, or there are all kinds of things that one would think that with the level of technology available to us today could be mitigated to the extent that people could actually get some semblance of a decent night's sleep. I'm not suggesting that you, our viewers, can do anything about this at your own level. I mean, you can't prepare for being in the hospital. It happens. You're in the hospital. But what you can do is advocate for yourself and advocate for others with your local politicians, with your local hospital, with your governments, with anybody that funds these hospitals. We must be asking them to do better. We must be asking our governments to fund our healthcare facilities to a level that provides adequate care. They are doing business the way that they used to do business 20, 50, 100 years ago. And even with the improvements that have been made in care, the stays are shorter, the medicines are better, the level of functional decline or hospital-associated disability has not decreased in 30 years. You'll see that in the article as well. Despite the advancements that they've made, they haven't made advancements in the areas that matter to people's ability to function properly when they go home from the hospital. I am asking you to demand that our hospitals do better, demand that the ability to fund the hospitals be looked at and made better in the areas that really matter. I'm sorry, but it costs money to run a hospital. Our demographic that is being served increasingly in these hospitals has changed. We are mostly a population of elderly people, and that is going to continue to increase as the years go by. So we have to do hospitals differently to serve this population the way that they need to be served. That is my rant for today. Please do what you can. Please demand more of our governments and our hospitals to serve our older patients better. Sending people home with an inability to function and care for themselves means we are putting more of a burden on our healthcare system, more of a burden on families, and more of a burden on people who didn't plan to not be able to look after themselves as they age. Please, people, as we always say at the end of every show, do remember that it takes a village to age a senior, and in this case, the village needs to include the governments and funders. Take care. We'll see you next week, Wednesday at 12 noon.